Hey everybody, it's Andy with this week's Tips for Work and Life. Today we're going to talk about confidence and how to boost yours in a job interview. I've got some great pro tips, some really neat giveaways to help you as you prepare so that when you go in for your job interviews, you're going to feel very, very well prepared and confident. And confidence and the way you exude that is one of the most important ingredients to a successful job interview. But let's level set here for a second. I know you all have varying degrees of confidence and levels in your own confidence and abilities. But for whoever you are, however confident or non-confident you are, think about when you were most confident. You probably felt super knowledgeable about what you were doing or what you were discussing. Knowledge breeds confidence, as well as you probably felt very prepared. Preparation breeds confidence. So the first thing I want you to do is just take a deep breath and remember, if you are in a job interview, for those of you that follow me, you know I say this all the time, you are likely qualified for that job and you can do it effectively. That's why the employer invited you in for an interview. So take some comfort in that. Now the preparation part, I can really help you with. That's what we're going to focus on in this video. So before we dive into that, I want you to think about the context, the three biggest aspects of what's happening in a job interview. You've got you and your story and what you're all about. That's one. You've got the employer, the questions they're going to ask you, and the responses you have to give them in order for them to determine whether or not you're a good fit. You and your story and what you're all about is a good fit. And the third element is the questions you're going to ask the employer to determine if they're a good fit for you. So let's take those in order, and I'm going to give you a little pro tip or a couple of pro tips on each one of those. Now, number one, knowing your story. I'm sure some of you are out there thinking, Andy, I live with myself all the time. Of course I know my story. I won't argue with that. Right? A lot of you waltz through life, you know what you're doing, you know where you've been, you know what you've done. But there's a huge difference between knowing what you've done, being able to recall it in detail under duress, and bringing real life into it, and the color and the details that you give your story when you share it with somebody. So let's paint the scene. You start the interview, it's all about your story in the beginning, it usually is. And somebody just asked you, tell me about yourself. Or how about this one? Walk me through your resume. That's the best because now you can waltz right through it. You got your resume to use as a crutch. But like I said, remembering what it is that you did isn't so difficult. But being able to share your story with some real life, that's where the confidence comes in. So I want you to, before you go into a job interview, I want you to actually think back, sit down with your resume, pour your favorite cup of coffee, sit at the coffee table. You've got no distractions, you're not under any duress, and you could go through your resume, and I want you to think about, as you walk through the highlights on your resume and all the bullets that you've got laid out there, what was actually happening at the time you were doing that. Remember, some of the activities that you perform might be 10 years old, and those could still be very, very relevant to what the employer wants to know. Who was on the project? What were you doing? Think about what the air smelled like. Think about what the business problem was. And I have a great aid that you can download that's right there in the notes. It's my Career Achievements Journal. It's got 14 points that you should address for every major project in your career. Use those questions to stimulate your thinking so that you could start to recall what was happening throughout the last 10 or 20 years of your career. So that when somebody says, as you're walking through your resume, hey, hold it right there. That's really interesting to me, to us. Let's talk a little bit more about that in part of your career. And you could say, you know what? Oh man, that was such a wonderful time in my life. I was on this 30-person project team. We were implementing this software system for our customer. I was managing a five-person SWAT team that was focusing on the architectural design and development, blah, blah, blah. That is much different when you have it at your fingertips, even though it was 10 or 15 years ago, and you're able to articulate that with details. Details about what's going on at any moment in your story is what brings life to it. It helps the person paint a picture of what's happening, and it makes them feel as though you know your stuff, and you will come off as confident. So that's one thing that I would do. When you shift to them asking more detailed questions about your experience, your skill sets, knowing the responses and the stories that you want to tell them and the details that you want to use are going to be extremely important. So point number 2 is when they're asking more detailed questions, you need to be prepared for just about any question. So one thing that I can give you that's very, very good, it'll be very effective. I've got a great ebook called Ace Your Job Interview, Master the 14 Best Responses master the best responses to the 14 most effective job interview questions. And if you look at those, you will see a pattern. There are a lot of very, very good interview questions that the employer also disguises, but they're all looking for the same 15 to 20 aspects about you. So in that ebook, I not only give you the 14 questions that you're likely to be asked, but 43 variations, the rationale behind why they're asked, and the very best responses for what the employer is looking for. So the preparation and you understanding the most common and the most critical job interview questions and knowing your responses to those are things that you can plan in advance, and you can use that career achievements journal that I mentioned to stimulate your thoughts and the details that go along with those responses. So that's number 2, and you will come off confident, you will know it, and you will be ready for just about any interview question that comes along. And number 3, the questions that you ask, if you are well researched and you have very well thought out questions, these can be scripted based on your requirements and what's important to you. You get to do all of this in advance. So script out those questions. If you're looking for a bunch of questions, here's another giveaway for you. I have a free webinar called 3 Keys to Ace Any Job Interview. The attendees get a great ebook called How to Interview the Employer, 75 Great Questions to Ask Before You Take Any Job. Use those questions. Take the ones you want. You'll never run out. There's plenty of them there for you to choose from. But here's your pro tip. It's not just good enough to ask well-designed questions and be thorough and show that you're researched. But confidence comes from you being able to quickly respond to what the employer says in his or her response to your question. So step number 1 is, what's the question you're going to ask? Step number 2 is you spending some time in advance anticipating what the possible responses can be, and then knowing what follow-up questions you're going to ask. That shows them you're confident. That shows them you know what you're looking for. That shows them you know how to investigate. Confidence comes from that. And if you are able to anticipate what the likely outcomes are, you're going to be way ahead of the game. So there they are. 3 areas you can focus on. Knowing your story, taking some time, thinking about your entire career, and bringing to life the events in your career, not just the activities, but the impact from those activities and the details. Second thing is make sure you're ready for any kind of questions that they might ask. So I've given you the Ace Your Job Interview ebook in order to do that, and making sure that you not only have great questions to ask, but you have great follow-up questions to ask. So check out the 3 Keys to Ace Any Job Interview webinar and the How to Interview Your Employer, 75 Great Questions to Ask Before You Take Any Job ebook. So I hope you like those points. If you enjoyed this, give me a like, a comment, and a share. And if you're watching it anywhere other than my YouTube channel or the Tips for Work and Life blog, hop over to the blog, check out all the other job interviewing tips that I have so that you are supremely confident and you can win that interview. Until next week, have a great one.